welcome everyone. This is a great turnout, 25 people. This is kind of what we have, 25 to 28 people. I think other people will dribble in as we go on. So I just wanted to kind of say welcome to everybody and for their, their participation in yet another Zoom meeting. So it's really helpful. So I wanted to open this up if anyone has, I guess, anything to say for all the members for open comments. Just wanted to make sure that people, had a forum if they wanted to announce anything or. So as before, I'll wait for patiently and then just kind of go on to other things. But I did notice in the participants list, now we're up to 30 people. So this is a great thing. I wanted to welcome back a member that hasn't been here for a while is Lorenz. And Lorenz and I kind of talked a little bit earlier, and he's going to join us. Hopefully I can twist Lorenz's arm to rejoin, Focus. But, welcome back, Lorenz. Always glad. I've always enjoyed your images. So look forward to having you rejoin as a member with us. So, I think to start with, we're going to basically, I'm going to have Oz say a few words. I'll come back on and say a few comments about the program that's going to be on the 13th of November. And then I will have, Larry talk about competitions and introduce our judge for tonight. So Oz, the soapbox is yours.
Very good, thank you. So I want to say a few words to let people know what's coming up. Normally on December, well, first meeting in December, the only meeting, we would have an awards banquet. And of course that won't happen this year with the COVID-19. So we'll have a Zoom meeting on December 11th, and we'll be presenting awards at that point. And I guess they'll be sent out, the people who receive the awards. And then we'll be, the nominating committee will be presenting the people who are volunteering for next year. And we will have a vote on that as to whether there's only one person, whether they are voted in or out. And if there are more than if there's more than one person, then we'll have a vote on who gets to do that duty. So that's what will happen on December 11th. And you're probably wondering what will be happening next year. So most likely, we're assuming that we will be doing this virtually all of next year. Of course, if the virus goes away for some reason or somehow, then we will try and meet in person. At the moment, the Civic Center, where we have been meeting, is allowing meetings in the room where we are, but they're limiting to 8 people, and they're charging a $75 per meeting fee for cleaning. So both of those say that we can't do that. We have more people, and $75 is prohibitive for us. So if we're going to get an improvement in the COVID-19 situation, it's probably going to be because we get a vaccine that works. And when that happens is unknown. Yeah, so next year we'll continue with having specific topics. But again, as we have been doing this year, you can enter any kind of picture you want. We encourage you to submit a picture for the topic, but if that doesn't work for you, just submit something. That would be better than not submitting a picture at all. Then we have been meeting this year, the second Wednesday and the fourth Friday. Next year, since we're
the other way, the second Friday and the fourth Wednesday.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So what we're going to do this coming year, is meet the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday. Is that right, Larry?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought you should know that so you can plan ahead. Yeah, so we won't be meeting in the Civic Center until it's really safe for everybody. And even if the meeting people or the Civic Center people say it's okay, if we don't feel comfortable, then we won't meet there. The other thing is we may not be able to meet there at all, and we would have to find a new place to meet. So it's quite unknown what will happen next year. So I just wanted to let everybody know, and that way we can all plan. That's pretty much it for me, and if you have questions, please speak up. Dave, I'll turn it back to you.
Yep, appreciate that, Oz, very much. So I don't have much to go on for November 13th. This is a program that is going to be by Eric Holiday McCann. And the only notes that I have is HDR in Lightroom and then luminosity masks in Photoshop. But I'm sure as we get closer to this, we'll get more information on the details of that presentation from Eric, and that'll be posted by Carl on the webpage. So kind of stay tuned for that. I've noticed in the participant list, there's a number of people that haven't muted themselves. So I would encourage people to do that, to keep all the barking dogs and the political, phone calls from interrupting the meeting tonight. And my role is done. I will turn this over to Larry to talk about all things competition and introduce our judge for tonight. All is yours, Larry.
Thank you, Dave. I'll mention that November competition is fall colors. And this includes, of course, trees, leaves, fruits, or vegetables, but nothing artificial. Don't include any photos of artificial stuff. Technically, black and white is not allowed, but as I said, if you don't have anything that comports with the theme, submit some other photographs. You will not be disqualified, nor will your score be lowered. We had scheduled Wendy Gadak, but I've had trouble reaching her. I've left messages, and if anybody knows what might be going on with her, please let me know. If we don't have her judging, we may touch some of our other members who have qualifications for judging. So with that, we have 47 images tonight, and plus 2 additional critique only. So our judge tonight is Scott Wilson. You probably remember Scott. He gave a wonderful program a few months back about his, what do you call it, health problem journey, which has resulted in a lot of success, and it gave us some really touching and wonderful ideas and for creativity and what to do when we get down in some of our personal problems. But Scott is Scottish, born in Scotland, and he's been a United Kingdom landscape photographer and the year finalist for 4 years before moving to Colorado in 2015. That's when he became a member of Focus Camera Club. And he won the annual award for digital competitions in his first year. Scott credits much of his early development to the withering scrutiny of the judges of the club competitions. And he likes how the competition calendar stretches a photographer's ability to tackle multiple genres. Scott's work is featured in a wide range of Colorado media, including 5280 magazine, Denver Post, Colorado Life, 303 Magazine, CBS 4, Denver 7, and 9 News. He was a resident artist at the Denver Photo Art Gallery and was named Denver Instagrammer of the Year by Westward Magazine. He loves the diversity of landscapes and wildlife shootings. All I've been drinking is water, even though it doesn't sound like it. He has developed a special passion for wild horses, at Sand Wash Basin in the northwest corner of the state. His work has been displayed at the Denver Airport and won Best in Show at the Colorado Horse Council's annual Horse Expo earlier this year. So with that, I introduce Scott. Please take it away, Scott.
Well, thanks very much, Larry. I've got very little to add other than I'm delighted to be here. I'm flattered to have been asked, and it's nice to see so many familiar faces and be back among friends again. Hopefully we'll still be friends at the end of the evening after I've dished out the scores, but I'm expecting some really quality work. I'm obviously very familiar with the people at Focus, and I know the talent and standard that has preceded me. So I'm looking forward to seeing some great work. And I'm not here to sell anything, Larry. So I know you said talk about books and things, but if people want to make friends on Facebook or Instagram, I'm there under Wilson Axpe. That's AXPE on both. And it would be great to make new photographer friends, but I'm not here to sell anything, Larry.
Oh, why not? Don't you have a book that you wrote?
I do. But we'll do the competition. The book's for another night.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Well,
Especially 49 images to get through.
This is 5.6.
Okay, and this is an open competition, isn't it?
Well, it's supposed to be fall colors, but any image is qualified, and you don't score it if it's not a. Excuse me, you're correct. It's open competition. Yeah, fall colors is November.
Right. Okay, super. Well, it's a great start, actually. I assume you want me just to fire straight in, Larry. You just want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, okay, so it's a great image to kick off. Lots of drama there, certainly. I'm a real lover of seascapes and waterscapes, so that's a great personal start for me. I love the blue tones. I love the contrast and layering we've got, particularly down the left-hand side, which really shows the sort of definition of the rocks there. And I love that shaft of light through the middle. If I was to offer one improvement, maybe the shaft of light's a tiny bit too bright. So I think if we give that a 9 and actually managing that light down just a little bit, so you've still got the impact of the light, but not quite so bright.
I should have mentioned the title is The Way to the Ocean.
Superb. So we're talking estuary, but lovely image, great start. So that's a 9.
9, okay. Thank you. Lone Buffalo.
Okay, I think I recognize this tree as well, and this would fit with the fall colors theme next month as well, I imagine, with the sort of grass tones there. So lovely, it's kind of perspective between the bison and the tree there. There's no tree cutting across the bison, so I've got separation around the bison, which is nice. It's always a challenge getting a bison to put his head up and ideally look at you, so I recognize the challenges there. The sky's a little bit bright and blown out, so some definition there would have been a real bonus, but I think it's a nice, pleasing image, and the shape between the tree and the bison is ideal. So I'll give that a 7.
Fiery sunset.
Okay, it's certainly fiery. Nice broad panorama there. Clearly a lot of drama in those clouds. There's a real set. I can see the depth there. That there's still a little bit of sharpness. in those distant mountains. If we're looking for areas of improvement, I think there might be a little couple of dust spots in there. Just from a technical point of view, you should sort of be very aware of those and clear them up. Looks like there's one on the left-hand kind of third, right-hand third, and one on the maybe an inch in from the left on my screen. The colors, I would maybe dial back the saturation a little bit. They're punching very, very heavy there. So I think you could capture the orange glow of the sun and maybe just dial back the blue a little bit. So there's a little bit more of a natural tone coming through there. And where possible, and I would use a graduated filter for this, try and create more of a balance between the sky and the foreground. So you see a little bit more of the detail coming through in that dark foreground. But as a sort of panoramic effort, nice shape to the scene, and we'll go for a 7 there as well.
Clash of geopolitics.
Okay, there's a lot of intrigue in this. And instantly my eye was like, whoa, what an interesting subject. And I was kind of drawn straight into that V shape in the center. Quite often in images, you're looking for the subject, but I was quite quickly drawn in there. I like the color palette as it sort of runs through the different rock layers, if you like. And the shape's great. So it's a simple image, but it's quite a pleasing image. And I really like that punching shape, as I say. So we'll give that an 8.
Could you mention what you might say improvement?
I think balance. So the color balance might be a tiny bit area to work on. So the sort of greeny yellow at the top and that kind of lilac thread that's running through it could be toned a little bit more closely together. They slightly jar, but it's not a big thing that's holding me back, to be honest. But that's what I would work on. And then maybe just drawing, I mean, you've already done good work on that V in the center. Maybe some, not maybe a vignette, but just a darkening of some of the outer edges, particularly in the bottom, would just draw my eye in even more to that G in the center.
You said an 8?
8, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Young deer.
Okay, it's a lovely scene. You immediately smile when you see a sort of soft wildlife scene like this. Clearly the attention on the eyes of the 2 deer at the back is kind of captivating. That's what brings you in. The lovely sort of color palette, nice soft kind of fawn tones, no pun intended. Of course, it would be great if the deer in the front's head was up a little bit and she or he were taking part a little bit more fully in the group. And there's a bit of softness, I think, in the focus. It might be my screen, but I suspect there's actually a softness in the focus. So, you know, just wait till that 3rd deer puts his head up, and suddenly you've got a trio of equally captivating animals in a group, and then work on just making sure you've got your focus spot on. So I will give that a 7, Larry.
Mountain stream.
Okay, there's a lot going on here, but again, I've got a focus coming through the river in the middle. It's a very pleasing scene. There's some lovely sunlight captured there. I can see they've used an ND or something to create the long exposure to just give some motion in the water. I'm a fan of that type of work, so it's great there. That sunlight detail on the right-hand side really, really pops and actually fills the image out, so it's not just a water scene. It's very difficult to contrast flowing water on a bright day with the areas around it. I'm not sure if it's pure sunlight or if there's been flash used. Either way, it's been well achieved there. So if there was improvement areas, the top right is just a little bit dark, so think about how you could bring that out a little bit to balance things. And then there's a couple of overly bright spots. So one just to the left end of the bridge, and then right in the middle of the water where the sun just hits it. If you can dial those down just a little bit, then you'd be in a stronger position. But I think that's a strong 8.
Okay, that's the end of the F5.6. We have 1, 9, We're going to show that. That's The Way to the Ocean by Terry Hanford. Are you here, Terry?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
This was taken a few years back in Milford Sound down in New Zealand when my son invited me to go there with him. I worked pretty hard to bring out the dark areas on the left, and I still wasn't satisfied, but I went into Lightroom and I just happened to pass on this preset that was for bimodal, which created this sort of cream blue look, and I thought it really made it pop. So thanks for the comments.
Nice job, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. Now we'll go into the F8 images. Forest fire sunset.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the title adds an element of poignancy there, doesn't it? I know I've had some incredibly red and orange sunsets over the past couple of months, and it's just adds up a note of melancholy, I think, to the image. I like the shape of this, really powerful use of the thirds. You've got that big, strong feature on the right, strong telegraph pole on the left, and then the sun pretty much centered in the middle. I like the toning in the sense that it's not overly saturated, it's not over orange, which is something we can often be tempted to do. I can see detail in pretty much all the areas, maybe just a little bit more in the trees on the left at the back, but it's not a major critique. Managing sun brightness is always a difficulty, whether you're using filters or blending. If you can get to a point that you're creating some sort of color definition rather than a bright white spot, and I know that's a very debatable subject, but I think it's a strong image. Ideally some more, there's a kind of monochromatic feel to the orange, so and I appreciate that was just the sky, but if there was a little bit more definition in the sky, that might just give it a bit more impact, but you're probably working with what was there at the time, so I think that's a strong 8.
Holder of the golden keys.
Again, this just oozes story. I mean, it's just a very sort of powerful, impactful little section of what appears to be a statue, I imagine, with those keys there. So it really, really punches out from that point of view. I'm intrigued about what the keys open. I want to know more about it. So from a storytelling point of view, you've drawn me in fantastically well. For me, the colors are a tiny bit too saturated, so you could maybe dial those back, and it just might soften the area behind the keys in particular. That bright yellow behind the keys is a little bit of distraction from the keys, but I don't want to take away from the storytelling element, and I actually think that overrides some of the technical concerns. So I'm going to give that a 9. There's a little bit of softness in the focus there as well, so I would manage that. I imagine it's been indoors in a very dark church or something, so I appreciate there's always shutter speed challenges there, but take a tripod, you know, if you're going to do a church. But just from a storytelling point of view, that's why that's a 9.
Gone but not forgotten.
Equally powerful from a storytelling point of view. The focus on that rose on the, I mean, it just tells a massive story. Obviously, you know, someone being remembered. The cross there. I like the way that front grave has been cropped, so it really brings your focus in on the rose, and you've got the V coming out with the other gravestones. Very powerful image. In terms of improvement, I would either have cropped further down just to make it look like you've not just missed the top of the trees. So either miss them completely or raise your camera up a little bit to get the tops of the trees in there, just to sort of create some shape at the back. The white area at the back is a little bit of a distraction from the gravestones. And maybe, you'll hear this again and again, but maybe just manage the green-yellow combination there so that the yellow of the grass isn't taking away from the rest of the image. But again, another powerful storyteller, so another 9.
Would you say 9?
Yep.
Waiting for a date.
Okay, there's lots of intrigue and interest here. I like the title. It gives a little bit of sort of quirky humor there in terms of the guy waiting for a date. He's already got his drink, so he's feeling quite confident. There's a lot going on, and I use that as a slightly double-edged comment. So I like the interest, but I'm not quite sure where to settle my eye from that point of view, from a storytelling point of view. Is it the guy? Is it the bar sign? Is it the hotel sign? The road closed sign on the left is a little bit of a distraction from that point of view. So I think just a tighter composition or use of depth of field would actually have just drawn my eye a little bit more to the subject that you want me to focus on. I assume it's the guy, but I'm not sure without that help, if you like, from the photographer. So strong shape, lots of interest. I think that's a 7, Larry.
Looking around the corner.
Okay, again, an image that's drawing me in from a storytelling point of view. I'm immediately curious. There's always the question of whether this is the photographer's art or somebody else's art. I appreciate that. That's an ongoing debate within club competitions. Regardless, I think it's a powerful mural, and it's been nicely captured. There's a sort of balance between the light and the shade on the left and the right. I'm not quite sure, again, where to settle my eye from a focus point of view. It's a picture of a mural, and it's been decently executed from that point of view. I find the blue a little bit too saturated. If it could just be toned to blend with the rest of the picture, I think that would just soften things a little bit. And arguably, the sort of blue of the shadow versus the light on the left are a little bit too contrasty from a color point of view rather than a shadow point of view. So again, I think that's a 7, Larry.
And that's the end of the F8s. We have 2 9s. This is the Holder of the Golden Keys by Ernie Kummerer. Ernie, are you here, Ernie? I thought Ernie was here. Maybe not. Okay, the next one is Gone But Not Forgotten by Alan Schoenagel.
Yes, I was up just paying respects to the comrades in arms up at Logan, and I chanced upon seeing a rose on a particular tombstone, and just the red rose and the field of marble just intrigued me. So, and I can understand why, but I saw your comments about the tree line, and I understand. Okay, yeah, I got it now. So, but thank you for that.
No problem at all. The other thing I thought of at the time, but this was a personal choice, and I didn't know the story, but you could lean lower and actually get the name of the subject that was in question, but you might have wanted to depict an unknown soldier quality. So I didn't make that a comment, but it's just if you wanted to bring some personality to it.
Well, I thought about it because I did capture the guy's name, and I looked at it and go, I was torn between exactly what you just said and just leaving it basically tombs of unknown soldiers because you can't see their names, and I chose that direction.
Yeah, and I totally respect. That's why I didn't make it a technical comment, because it's a subjective choice.
Good. Thanks, Alan.
Sure.
Is Ernie back at all, or maybe not? Okay, we can go on to the F11. Special occasion.
Well, this is a gorgeous little scene, isn't it? Beautifully captured street scene. I love the palette of colors there. There's a kind of warmth. I want to go and sit at the table and, you know, order my dinner. So that you've certainly drawn me in from an emotional and storytelling point of view. There's a depth and intrigue there. I can see that lantern right in the background, just sort of starting to fill things up and give me some detail. I can see the texture on the walls behind the table. And then my focus is brought in to the table itself with those glasses. And I've even got a clue that it might be a Chinese or Japanese restaurant. Apologies for not recognizing the typeface based on that sign on the wood. So there's just lots of interest around the picture, but no loss of focus, if you like, on the table. So I'm going to give that my first 10.
Zigzag shadows.
Okay. I've just spent a period in Telluride, so I fell in love with these types of split rail fencing that you've got here, and an old log cabin. I assume it's Colorado. It might not be. It's not essential. Interesting shadows in the ground, which Clay brought out by the title. I think I might have liked to see them even more contrast, even more punched out, as they are the title after all. So maybe some work on the contrast there. And there's a nice shape of that diagonal line taking you into the cabin. And then I'm not lost in the trees at the back. That's fairly reasonable. There is a lot of fencing at the back, which I appreciate you can't do much about as a photographer, but it is distracting. So I don't know if there's maybe a way of burning those down a little bit. So more contrast, punch out those shadows even more, and just maybe manage down some of those brighter areas. I think that's an 8, Larry.
Say again, Scott.
8.
8. Standing tall on Bodie Island.
Okay, there's certainly lots of impact straight away, and I love it when someone says, screw it to the rule of thirds, and just sort of gives you something big and prominent in the middle there. Interesting use of spot color. You know, whether you like it or not, it's an interesting use. I like the line leading to the path. There is an argument that I assume the lighthouse isn't slightly tilted in real life, so it's slightly tilting back and to the left. So that's something you can manage in Lightroom with vertical alignment, or you can manage it in camera simply by making sure your camera is perfectly on the same plane as the lighthouse. I would work that out. And then the blacks are just a little bit too black. So I'd think about if there's any brick detail, for example, that you could bring out of that. So lots of marks for impact. It just hits you right there. I think there's some technical work on the alignment and the shadow area. I'm not going to mark it up or down on the spot color. I'm not a fan of spot color, but that's just a personal choice. But it's a decent 8, Larry.
After the people are gone.
Okay, there's lovely shape here. Difficult shooting at night all the time. I assume there's been a tripod used and some long exposure. I love the diagonal lines that are going on, and then meet this central line between the two stone or metal balls in the foreground. Managing night lights is always difficult. If we could either use a filter or blend images such that you can have some definition in the lanterns, that would punch this up from a points point of view. But the fact you've got that light and you've got detail in the buildings at the back and you've got detail in the sky, they're all good things. So there's not much you can do about the trash cans, but maybe you could spot out the, I don't know what it says there, but there's a red prohibition warning of some sort in that trash can. So that's taking my eye just a little bit, and that's a fairly easy fix in Lightroom. So I think it's a very nice composition, and just some technical work on the lighting I think would make it stronger. So it's a strong 8, Larry.
Nighttime at the El Rancho.
Okay, really captivating scene. My eyes kind of really drawn into that shop window there. It looks like a wolf on the left, like he's sort of prowling through the urban streets at night. I assume that's his owner walking on the right. I like the little bit of motion in the guy walking through the long exposure. And that El Rancho Tavern mural or old poster that you've got on the right-hand side looks like a boxing scene there. Just really adds to the sort of storytelling intrigue in this. There's a sort of nice kind of faded, slightly desaturated tone around the neon lighting, and I like that. It really makes that lighting punch there. If I was to look for something a little bit improvement, I'd like the dog to be doing something a little bit more animated. He's kind of just standing waiting, so I don't know even if he was sitting attentive or trying to walk. It looks like he's leashed, so I appreciate that might be difficult. I can see people at the bar, so maybe if there was some movement there or a door opening. So waiting for a moment of energy, really, just to bring that scene to life would take it from the 9 that it is.
9.
Yeah.
Dreams of Alpine Gold.
Okay, so Milky Way scene. I assume this is Colorado. Good effort at capturing the Milky Way there, sort of keeping that exposure length down such that the stars aren't moving. So you've got a good definition on the Milky Way, which is always a challenge. I assume there's been a wide angle use here. You've got a sort of full story there of the Milky Way. You've got the cabins. And it looks like you've illuminated them from the inside, or they have been illuminated from the inside. But that helps to add to the story. It's not just a dark scene there. One of the challenges, of course, with capturing the Milky Way, it needs to be incredibly dark. And you can tell that there's quite a bit of noise in the bottom half of the image, which is always very difficult to manage in a single exposure for a Milky Way. So sometimes I actually use graduated filters when I'm shooting the Milky Way. You know, don't just think of those as daytime options. So that would allow you to bring more detail out of your foreground, or consider blending an image. So you actually take a separate image of your foreground scene and a separate image of the Milky Way and blend them. That's not something I do, but it's a very practical way through that. So I think it's a great attempt at a Milky Way. I like the definition of the top half. The bottom half just needs more detail. So it's a good 8, Larry.
8, okay. Bryce Snow at sunrise.
Okay. It's a beautiful setting, beautiful landscape location. I love the layering that we've got going on through the rocks here. Some lovely orange colors there, contrast with the snow. So a really sort of wonderful scene. The sunrise light and the sunrise title kind of feel a little bit at odds here. So I believe it was sunlight, but actually it feels bright for a sunlight. So I maybe work on darkening down the snow on bottom left in particular, and just maybe punch out the contrast a little bit more. So you've got more shadow and light going on. Beautiful scene, nice sort of diagonal shapes running bottom right up to the top left. Personally, I'd like to see a little bit more sky, particularly if it is that kind of sunrise scene, then you'd expect to have some sort of interesting color going on in the sky. So I think we'll give that an 8, Larry.
Okay. Beauty in the eye of the beholder.
Okay, wonderful. It just stops you in your tracks when you see an animal portrait like this, just sort of staring back at you, and you can always see into his mind and his soul, can't you, with that sort of sharp focus on the eye. So really nice focus, as I say. It looks like he's got a chip out of his left ear, so there's clearly been some battling going on. Nice angle of the head. Equally valid would be sort of straight on, but you know, it's a nice angle there. You can see the tuft of beard there. So lovely focus on the lion. a little bit bright, I think, round his neck area. So if you could sort of darken that down, I appreciate you're trying to capture the sunlight moment. Just your eye will always go, and it's an old sort of club judge cliche, but your eye will always go to the brightest area. So my eye is going to the neck area rather than those beautifully focused eyes. So I think that's the difference between a 9 and a 10 in this situation. So we'll give that a 9, Larry.
Okay. Striking pose.
Okay. Well, it certainly is a striking pose, and that's a hell of a rack that's on what looks like a fairly young stag, but he's got a very well developed rack there. The reason I was hesitating, I was trying to work out if it was my screen or if there was sharp focus. And to be fair, I think the eye is sharp from what I'm looking at now. Again, there's arguments about should that be on the third or in the center. I'm a fan of center positioning, so I don't have an issue with that at all. And as I say, you've caught nice eye focus, nice soft background. So even though it's quite a, if it was in focus, it would be quite a messy background. So the depth of field really helped to punch out the stag. It's a difficult choice where to cut. So we don't have the feet. So do you cut high to make it look like it was deliberate, or do we cut where it is? I might have cut that a little bit higher just to make it obvious that the feet weren't missed, if that makes sense. And maybe if the stag was just doing, I'm kind of looking for another area of interest rather than just the sort of straight focus of the stag. I'm intrigued by what he's looking at, because he doesn't appear to be looking at the photographer. He appears to be looking off to the left, if that's my imagination. From a color toning point of view, it looks like there's a little bit of blue in the antlers, so I'd maybe just manage that, soften that down a little bit so you get that kind of beige effect coming through. But overall, a very pleasing animal scene. I think seeing the whole stag and maybe even more interaction with the photographer would have given it that impact that would have taken up to a 9. But we'll give that a strong 8, Larry.
Okay. Another coronavirus shutdown. Okay.
It's a very sort of telling title, but lovely scene here. I like the angle, the way it's been shot at. So you've got that sort of 3/4 angle, so you can see the front and the side of the building. There's good color management across the sort of Texaco sign, the paint. I can see all the texture coming through. There's no distractions in the foreground. I can see the sort of the history there of the broken glass and the windows and that wood coming through. It's a bright, bright day, so you've actually managed, there's no real hot spots from a light point of view, which I think is great. My eye keeps going to the sky off to the right, though. It's maybe just a little bit too blue, which is a shame, because when you get a nice blue sky with clouds, that's great. But maybe just dial the blue saturation or brightness down a little bit, and it'll just keep your eye on that Texaco sign, which is where you want it. But it's a nice study of an old derelict building. I like it. So I think we'll give that a 9.
Did you say 8 or 9?
9.
9, okay. Jackson's garage.
This just oozes intrigue and storytelling. That's wonderful. I love often you're tempted to open all the doors, but just having that half door open, that car just peeking out, it just demands that you kind of walk up to it and look in. It's a really intriguing way of telling a story. I love the broken glass and the panes on the left. Everything that I want to be in focus is in focus. The Jackson's garage sign at the top is just kind of telling the sign of yesteryear and history, and someone used to tinker on that car and they're not anymore. And it's a lovely image, lovely storytelling image. if I could, I'd maybe make the harshness of the light a little bit softer, but I think I'm looking for, consciously looking for improvement techniques here. So a bit more contrast, just dial down some of the brightness of the colors. And I think that might make the truck pop even more. That's a lovely image. So we're going to give that a 10, Larry.
Okay. A spring flower.
Okay. So nice capture of the flower there. Good use of depth of field. So you've really got the focus popping in on the petals and is it stamen that are in the middle there. You can just feel the spring oozing through with, you know, as they kind of burst into life. Nice color management there as well. There's good use of depth of field, but it also feels like the focus could be a little bit sharper around the edges of some of the petals, just the sort of blending into the background. And I think if just to take it up a level, we'll just be looking for a bit more of a story, I suppose. So it's a nice feature of a spring petal, but I guess I'm looking for the story that kind of wraps around that. Do you wait for an insect? Do you wait for a bird? Do you bring in more of the tree itself? So there's those sort of questions you might be asking yourself as a photographer. Sometimes panning out can actually give you more focus than just panning in. So as I say, a pleasing image, maybe looking for a bit more story. So we'll give that an 8, Larry.
Okay. Workbench treasures.
Okay, talking of stories, again, this is telling a story. This is, you know, an old workshop there. You can see that nail battered into the burnt wood. You can imagine someone working away. They don't have time to go back to the house for a coffee, so they're grinding it there in these old tin cans. And it doesn't matter if that's a scene from yesteryear or it's current. It tells that story. So there's a lovely sense of history there. I like the textures, all the rust there. You've got the brick at the top with the sort of eroding paint. It just adds to that texture. There's no loss of detail in any of the shadows, which would have been, I assume this is inside, so that would have been quite easy to forgive. So again, lots going on. In terms of improvements, I think the focus on everything's interesting here. So the coffee pot, the red tin, if you like, it's just dominating a little bit. So maybe just dial back on the saturation a little bit, or make it more prominent within the story. So if you really want to make that the feature, then make it more prominent in the story, or dial it back and let the whole picture be your story. That would be my build. By contrast, the yellow on the leeks tin on the right isn't quite so dominant. It's there, and it's certainly impactful, but it's not taking over the image the way the red one is. Despite that, I like the story, I like the observation, and I like the impact. So that's still a 9, Larry.
Okay. Let's see. It must be sunrise at Castle Geyser.
Okay, well, I can certainly feel the geyser or geyser sort of exploding up there. There's great atmosphere coming out of what I assume is a crater. I love the management of light there as it kind of billows up to the sky. It's one of those ones that I'm not entirely sure if it's perfectly in focus, Larry. I don't know if you can see better. At your end, it looks a little bit soft, especially as it moves towards the top. But saying that, I like the diagonal flow that we've got going on. So it's definitely a powerful shot of a geyser. I'd like to see more detail come out the shadows at the bottom, and maybe again a little bit wider angle, actually stepping back. I mean, I'd love to see where that, if possible, to even see the end of the smoke, or something that looked more like a natural end, whether that's a curve or something that just gave an angle on it. It's always very difficult if it's billowing right up to the stars. I appreciate that. So I like the contrast of the light that's down at the bottom. If you could just manage that brighter area back a little bit, that would just give you a little bit more balance. So more detail in the bottom, slightly less brightness on that right-hand side. And if you could see some definition top left of what the cloud is doing, I think that would help tell more of a story. So that's a strong 8, Larry.
Sunset at Lost Lake.
Okay. Beautiful scene, one absolutely gorgeous lake there. You've got some lovely cloud color in the back there. So you've obviously shown up on a great evening for sunset there. Nice capture of the lake. Looks like it's either a small lake or a good wide angle lens to bring all that in. Lots of nice cloud color. As I say, nothing's lost in shadows, so I can see detail everywhere. And I'd say the colors are very well managed. Nothing looks, overly saturated. There are some bright areas to think about though, and if you don't use a graduated lens or blend, then maybe consider that. And that would help just darken down that sky a little bit and bring it more into balance with the foreground. So that brightness above the red, top left, and on the right is slightly drawing my eye away from the beauty of the scene below it. And that's really what you want me to be looking at. The tree on the left is kind of half in, half out of the picture as well. So I would either widen my angle so that I could bring the tree in, or actually narrow it so the top isn't kind of just poking a little bit. So think about how you would crop that or widen just to make more or deliberately less of that tree. But generally a very pleasing scene. I think it's another strong 8, Larry.
Okay. Now we have one more.
Mm-hmm.
That was an 8, Bob.
2 more.
On the bridge.
Loads of impact straight away. Another great sort of storytelling image. I love there's a kind of, it's a very fine line between total silhouette and just a little bit of detail. I think you've managed that really, really well. There's all sorts of little pastiches going on there in terms of stories. You get the guy on the right with his, taking a selfie of his family. You've got someone that looks like a spinning top there. You've got a little family walking on the left. I love the height with the trees below it. The light's been well managed. There's no blown out area. My eye isn't being distracted by an overly bright area. I'm torn a little bit between the busyness of the scene and the bustle that you've got going on, and maybe waiting to just get something that's isolated and very powerful. I can't help wondering if the only thing that was there was the guy with the fishing rod and the bike. It might have told an even more powerful story. Now you might say, Scott, there was 100 people walking across that bridge every minute. It was impossible to do that. But just think about what's the composition of people here that's going to really bring this brilliant scene to a rousing finish. So that would be my only improvement. Lovely scene, and that's a strong 9, Larry.
9?
Yeah.
This is Special Occasion by Victoria Ashby.
Yes, that was taken when we were in Barcelona, and we just happened to walk past that restaurant, and I just love the intimacy and the colors. And so I just took that shot.
Nicely observed.
Thank you.
It's really nice, Victoria. Thank you.
Okay, that's mine, Gwen Patton.
Yeah.
And it was taken in western Nebraska, and that door on the left does not open. I mean, it's stuck. The building is very old. I figured it was probably about 80 years old. That it's actually a truck in there, and the truck itself, it's an International L120, and when I look it up on the internet, it was made in 1950. And the license plate on that truck is from 74. So it's been in that garage for 46 years. So a real find.
Love the scene.
Thank you, Gwen. Okay, now we'll go on to F16. We're doing real good with time, Scott. You're doing a great job with critiquing also. This is a hiker and giant.
Okay. Immediate impact. I love that diagonal line of the arch going from the top right down to the left. The contrast between the shadow from the arch and then the light coming through there, just popping that person out. And the perspective, I think it's a female, the perspective that the lady's giving to the whole arch, just by being so tiny down the bottom there. There's lovely detail around the rocks all the way through to the background, and the sky isn't burning out at all. It's really well subdued, so it's a powerful image. It looks, and again, I don't know if it's my screen, it looks like there's a little bit of aberration up in the top left. I don't know if you can see a sort of crisscross effect on the image. Again, that might be my screen, so I won't mark it down for that, but just be aware of it. So really strong image, really strong dynamics. There's an energy, and the placement of the person just really starts to bring that story to life. So we'll give that a 9, Larry.
Okay.
And what was the score?
9. Boo!
Wow. That's certainly got impact, hasn't it? Absolutely dramatic and very timely with Halloween coming up. So lots of power and impact there. I love that kind of just staring right at the photographer look there. Very, very powerful. There's detail all the way around the hair, which, given it's such a dark image, is quite an achievement. And I'm a huge fan of symmetry. So I love the fact that we're sort of straight down the middle, and then we've got this sort of perfect symmetry of her face, hair, and neck either side. In terms of improvements, the brightness of the nose and the cheeks and the chin and that spot in the forehead for me are just a little bit too bright. So I think you want to just soften that down a little bit so it comes into kind of equilibrium with the rest of the image. Normally, I would say the red is oversaturated, but I totally get the point of it here. So I think that makes perfect sense. So I think if you manage down those light areas, you'd have an even more powerful image. I think despite that, just because of impact and total in your face and grab you story, that's a 9. My wife has just stocked me up with juice here. I was getting very thirsty.
Hey, there you go. This is the monorail zooming by. Okay. It's a really interesting image. There's lots of wonderful shapes and sort of color blends going on here. I love the kind of the low angle looking up. You've really sort of captured the underside of that building. And then there's the sort of interesting color scheme on the left here. I think what's holding me back a little bit is it's sort of a little bit like 3 stories. So I've got the piece on the left, which is this wonderful sort of blend of pinks and oranges, and then this curvature of what looks like a Guggenheim type design building, or Getty at the top there, and then the train itself down at the bottom. So I'm looking for something that just sort of congeals
the story, but the elements individually are lovely. The focus looks like it might be a little bit soft, and I'm not talking about the long exposure of the train. I understand that that would be slightly out of focus, but the focus itself looks like it's a little bit soft. And then you've got a bit of a bright area on the middle, on the right there. So I would work on bringing that down there. So think about the story, focus in on it, really punch that out. And I think you'll tell a more powerful story. So I think we'll give that an 8, Larry.
What was the score?
8.
8. Storm watch at DIA.
Okay, familiar scene out at the airport. So a photographer's dream, that kind of scene of, I think it's supposed to depict the Rocky Mountains, isn't it? And there's lovely drama going on. It's actually difficult to find a composition where those peaks are kind of telling a uniform story. I think you've done very well there. I like the panoramic effect, and I like the drama that we've got going on with the skies behind it. I'm also familiar with the challenges at the bottom of just where to crop that image, so that it's not, you know, you've not just got a car parked there and you're not cutting into the pyramid shapes themselves. So that's been nicely done. I can't quite work out if the sky's black and white and then we've got a spot color of blue. That's confusing me a little bit. So I just call that out. And I think that if the whites could just be dialed down, the brightness of the whites could be dialed down just a little bit, I think we'd create a more sort of pleasing equilibrium between the top and the bottom. There is a little bit of a blur in the sky. Again, it might be the screen, it might be the fact we're in a Zoom meeting, so I won't mark it down for that, but do check if the sky is kind of appropriately in focus there. But it's a very pleasing image. I'm not a fan of frames myself, but that's a personal point. Again, I won't mark it down for that. So that's a 9 from an image point of view.
This is Carl. Just a note on this image, when the maker submitted it, he did say that wasn't sure to put it in color or monochrome because he specifically stated that there was that blue in the top of the peaks there on there. So yeah, the blue is intentional.
Okay, and just as a side note, I would vote for making a firm choice. So I either make it mono or make it colored. So I think the spot color confuses rather than enhances the image there. Just a personal point.
I'm so cute.
And he is. You just smile when you see a picture like that. And I mean, just getting that close to a bear, even if you've got a 600 or 800 mil lens, that's still very, very close to have that much focus and sharpness. The eyes are fantastic. They're actually looking at the photographer. I like the detail of the little sort of fern or grasses on the left that are just complementing and creating a roundness. I imagine the photographer sort of wrestled with the idea of, should I crop just to the left of the nose or should I keep those ferns in? And I think you've made the right decision. It just creates a roundness to the storytelling scene there. Lovely shape, as I say, lovely turn. I think I'd like to have seen a little bit lower down. He's cropped quite high up, so he's just maybe sort of cropped at the neck. So if you could have got a little bit more of her or his body in there, that might have taken it up a notch. But it's an excellent nature image. I think likewise as well, if you look bottom right, the ears just kind of halfway out the frame. So I only just spotted that at the end there. Ideally, you want both ears in frame or more deliberately out of frame. So just be conscious of that as well. So I'm toying between a strong 8 and a 9. I think we'll give this a 9, Larry, because it just because of the warmth and the emotion that it conveys is very powerful.
It's really cute.
Wow.
Passive dispersal.
Okay, I mean, that's a beautiful study of some kind of plant life there. Absolutely wonderfully photographed. The contrast between that grey kind of slate-like background and then these not oversaturated, really nicely balanced colours in the centre there. Wonderful sense of shape of that crescent there. There's beautiful lighting on it. The contrast associated in the yellow, the oranges, the white really punch out against the grey. Because it's been a few images now, the sort of aberration that I can see in the background, I'm going to put down to zoom around the image just because I've seen it a few times now, but it looks like there's slight aberration in the background. I don't think that's the real image. Looking for improvement areas, arguably some of the bright areas are a tiny bit too bright, but these are very minor technical improvement. That's a wonderful image, Larry. I'm going to give that a 10.
Okay. Now, Palouse abstract.
Okay, loads of impact. My eyes just kind of going backwards and forwards. So I'm sort of following the sweep, which I assume is the photographer's intent to create that sort of sweeping motion. So I'm certainly drawn into the image from that point of view. So great shapes, great layers, good use of thirds there. I'm curious about what an additional feature might be. So assuming this is a big field, you know, and again, I'm consciously looking for things that would improve this. So whether it was a farmer or a tractor or a bird, just something that actually gave a little bit more of a story. I'm conscious the photographer's called it abstract, which maybe excuses that. But I think it's a big scene to be an abstract. So maybe an additional feature might actually make that into a landscape scene. It's certainly very pleasing and intriguing. For me personally, I think you could dial down just the brightness a little bit in the foreground and maybe the sky. And that would just draw your eye in a little bit to that sharp angle in the middle. But again, just from that kind of zigzag impact point of view, that feels like another 9.
Spikes and lines.
Strong impact again. I really like this. I just started taking it in. I wasn't hesitating from a concern point of view. The spikes are almost like a mini version of what we've just seen at DIA. They're really quite intriguing. I don't know if they are the sort of spikes on top of a wall to stop birds settling. It looks like it might be, but they've certainly captured a real sense of artistry there. The combination of blues is really, really powerful. Because the whole thing is blue, the blues don't look overly saturated there. They work really well together. I like the choice of where you've cropped those lines. I don't know what was outside of them, if there was a natural border or stop. But again, I'm not searching for what was outside of those. It's really very powerful. So a very strong abstract sense of shape. Tiny points. The sort of, you've got the white border at the bottom, then smooth brick, and then rough brick. So I'm curious whether cropping that up a little bit might have kept my interest in the center of the image rather than drawing it down to wonder what that texture was at the bottom. And if I'm honest, just knowing what was outside of those lines is something I'm curious about. So maybe having a more natural finish. I don't know whether it's if you finish on a white line rather than a blue line, you maybe create a stronger sense of square with the border. But these are just improvement thoughts. It's actually a very strong image, Larry. We'll give that a 9.
The title on that one is Across the Dunes.
Okay, this is a beautiful image, isn't it? I mean, just again, the power of the storytelling. It looks like a young lad or a young man just you know, walking these camels there. The silhouette is incredibly powerful. the sun, despite being bright, isn't dominating because it's not taking my eye away from the story. It's actually part of that story. I love the little wispy clouds that are up in the sky there as well. So this is a beautiful image. I am, again, looking for improvement techniques. I wonder if it's just a tiny bit too blue. So maybe just dialing that blue down a little bit. It is sand after all, so would a warmer tone work? Just something to experiment with, but I don't want to take away from the impact of this scene. It's a great story. The separation between the camels is absolutely critical. If the camel behind's head had been across the rear of the camel in front, it would have changed the story. So just seeing that rope as they work together, really, really powerful. And the animation in the boy, the fact his legs are separate, he's moving, he's got energy, is really powerful. So this is a very well-deserved 10, Larry.
Fall reflections.
I'm smiling as well. There's a lovely sense of warmth and storytelling there. It looks like there's been some in-camera artistry with sort of zoom mid-exposure, or something has happened in post-processing. I like this sense of dynamic energy that's been given to the light there. It's very powerful. I like that sense of, is it smoke or mist? I assume it's mist that we've got. And it just helps to contain the image and bring my focus into those wonderful golden leaves in the middle. And there's a real sense of warmth and sunlight and energy there. So I might have been tempted to hold this back for your fall colours competition next month, but either way it's a very strong image and merits a 10. If we're looking for improvement, the bright might just be a bit too bright, so just think about how you balance that a little bit. I appreciate we're trying to draw focus in, so just the leaves might be a tiny bit too bright, and maybe more of a story. I'm curious about, if you pull back, what else is there? But they're just curiosity points. So very strong image, very pleasing.
"'Tis the season of change."
Again, this is a tremendous candidate for your fall colours competition next month. I wonder if people knew that was coming up, but lovely set of shapes here with the bark of the tree. You've got the fern on the left, and then these wonderful array of autumnal colours through the sort of beige, fawn, yellows, reds, and oranges there. The color definition, I think, could pop a little bit more. So despite saying undersaturating some of the previous images, I'd be tempted towards a little even more richness here. That might be achieved through stronger contrast, or just punching out some of the colors and giving me a sense of where you want the real focus to be. What's the story here? So it's a lovely arrangement, but where do you want me to draw my eye into from a focus point of view and really punch out? So there's a particular leaf that you want to tell the story of. I think it might be the red one that's kind of on the third. So if that's the case, do you think about just dulling down some of the brightness around that to make that pop? That's just my thought of which leaf I would focus on. But I think, so very pleasing image, but looking for a slightly more powerful story from that point of view. So I think it's an 8, Larry.
"Teacher's pet."
Now, what you don't know, whoever shot this, is I'm from Scotland, where Rangers and Celtic are fierce, fierce rivals, and that little girl's wearing a Celtic top, and I support Rangers. So that's not helping you, but I will set that aside. It's an absolutely gorgeous scene, isn't it? And you can just see everybody's looking at the teacher, and then you've got the mischief on the face of the one who's deliberately not even wearing the uniform. So she's already been mischievous. I don't know what the photographer's done to draw her attention, but you've done a great job there, and I hope you haven't got her into trouble. But we talked about storytelling, and this is just a wonderful storytelling image. I love the shape of it. You know, everybody's in there. There's no one really cropped. Arguably, I can see a sweater of someone on far right there, but that's a very, very picky point. Beautiful storytelling, as I say. In terms of improvements, I think soften the colors a little bit. So there's a slight harshness. I don't know if it's flash or just really, really bright light, but just soften that light down a little bit, and I think it will just create an even sort of softer, more pleasant focus. And that window top right, I can see, to be fair, that you've already tried to dull some of that burnt out window down a little bit, but again, maybe think about shooting underexposing and then punching out the other areas so that you've still got some detail in that window. But beyond that, it's a lovely scene, beautifully captured. And I think it's been a privilege for you to have been there and seen that. So that's another 10, technical questions aside. I think you'll see that for me, the story is what's getting the points. And I'm happy to sacrifice some technical things if you've captured that story. So just, if you're looking for an underlying theme, I would make that point.
Thank you, Scott. Misty morning rain.
This has a real old impressionist painter feel, doesn't it? It's got a lovely kind of painterly quality. And it took, sometimes you've got to, particularly after you looked at a bright image, you've got to let your eyes kind of resettle on this. And it took me a while to realize how much texture and quality there was in the sky there. My first impression was it was burnt out, but as my eyes adjusted, I realized there's all this wonderful rain detail, and it just created this, as I say, impressionist painter feel. Lovely use. You've got the top 2/3 of sky and the bottom third of prairie or grassland there. And I imagine it was tempting, because the sky is quite white, to have done it in reverse, but I love the fact you've created this sense of almost textured negative space in that top half. It's an incredibly simple image, but it just oozes that impressionistic quality. So I'm going to give that a 10. It's a lovely image. I could see that hanging on someone's wall, and I'm being very, very pleased with it. Sorry, you want improvements, don't you? Yeah. Arguably, and again, I think I'm being fussy here, arguably you might look for a little bit more in the foreground, or do you crop the foreground more? So I guess that expanse at the bottom arguably could be a little bit shallower, but I think I'm pushing here, and maybe just a little bit, had you swung out to the right a little bit, would you have been able to unclip the shrubs that are in the foreground there? So you just had a sense of separation there. But this isn't that type of image. It's not really a crisp, perfect landscape image. It has that soft kind of dreamlike feel. So I don't want to be overly critical from that point of view. It's really lovely.
This table is delicious.
Wow. I imagine there's no teeth there as well, as he's probably his gums full of table. So that's a beautiful family image. Amazing eye contact. There's clearly some affection there between the photographer and the subject. I like the focus of the hands on there as well, which just adds a level of energy. I can see the sort of color pops in the background. I think because it's a photo of a baby, they're not distracting me. They're adding to this kind of colorful nursery feel. I don't know if that's an apron on the left, but there's a lovely focus there. So beautiful family portrait. I think the mother and father of that baby would be absolutely delighted to get that. I think from a photography point of view, punching up higher would have been a sort of more original subject from that point of view. So I think we'll give that an 8. It's a really strong family portrait, but a more original subject from a club competition point of view would help that quality of image get a higher score.
Abstract at sunset.
Okay, again, another very powerful, probably image that would have worked so well in your autumn colors. You're going to have nothing left, Larry, for your November competition, but I love the colors punching out here. It's kind of like autumnal oil on water, the way you've got all these different colors oozing together and blending. Nothing's dominating too much. Maybe some of the sort of brighter yellow lines are punching, but I think they're drawing my eye in and completing the story. So it's a very intriguing image. What I'm finding is my eye is sort of bouncing around, so I'm not quite sure what the subject is. So from a wallpaper point of view, or the abstract that you've described it, that works well. But I am curious about just where you want me to settle my eye and focus. So maybe think about that when you're working on your composition. And if we're being picky, then I think the oranges and the greens on the right fight a little bit. So if that green could be a bit more yellow, or that yellow could be a bit more orange, then I think you'd have a more pleasing equilibrium between the image. But again, being a little bit picky there. It's a very strong image, and we'll give that a 9, Larry.
Quechua girl in red.
First thing that hits you again is the eye contact. So there's clearly been some good dialogue between the photographer and his or her subject to get that focus looking back. Really, really powerful. I'm interested in the composition. I'm sort of wondering, why has the hat been cropped? It's not an unpleasant crop, but I'm just curious what was going on up above there. Lovely balance of reds between the top and the bottom. There's a beautiful circular motion, the strap of the girl's hat that just keeps you kind of working around that image. And as I say, that eye contact. It might be zoom. It doesn't look like it's in perfect focus to have been so close up. But I give that the benefit of the doubt. It could be the zoom. And my eye's slightly distracted by the kind of turquoise blue on the left. It's a beautiful color. It's almost too nice and too different from the rest of the image. So I keep going to that a little bit. So maybe just think about burning that out a little bit. And so my eye stays back in on the girl's face. But you know, just got that sort of little rosy texture in her cheeks, which works well with the red of her shawl and her hat as well. So I think from a tightness of crop, I'd like to have seen a tiny bit more. So I think that's what's stopping it being a 10. I think we'll give that a 9, Larry. If just being picky as well, again, it might be zoom, but the white of the eye looks just a tiny bit blown. So, and again, it could be zoom, but it looks like it's a tiny bit bright. So I just think about, and I know we're tempted to brighten the whites of eyes up all the time, but it can be just a notch too much. So just think about that, or check it when you get back home, in case I'm right.
Road map of leaf.
I'm just letting my eyes adjust again. So certainly gets top marks for impact. I mean, it just hits you between the eyes as soon as you look at the image, and it's very clear where that focus is sort of being drawn in. Clearly some technique going on. Again, is it zoom through the exposure, or is it something that's happened in post-processing? It doesn't matter. It's an interesting technique. I'm not quite sure what story the technique is telling me in this particular occasion. So I'm curious about the value of the technique versus the leaf in itself. The colours are well managed though, nice balance of greens and yellows, which are always difficult to manage, especially when you've got that red centre. I think the white veins are just popping a little bit too much from a brightness point of view. So think about softening those down. I like the containment of the circle when you've got the sort of black corners there. So overall, well executed. There's some clearly technical skill there, but I'm looking for a bit more of a story, Larry. So that's an 8.
A reflected autumn palette.
Okay, another clear candidate for your November competition. Lovely scene there, kind of abstract. It's got a similar kind of impressionist feel to what we described earlier in terms of that motion of the water. But in terms of subject, I'm looking for something even more powerful to draw me in. The blue is slightly fighting with the autumnal palette point of view. So more orange, more yellow, more red, I think would really bring the title to life and maybe dial that blue down a little bit. There's some nice diagonal features going on between the orange sort of bottom right up to top left. I can see that kind of story going on there. Generally speaking, just needs a little bit more punch, contrast. I think richness of color as well. So that's a 7, Larry.
Did you get that, Bob? That's a 7. Midnight Cowboy.
Wow, loads of impact. Great storytelling there. I don't know if it's a set-up scene or you've got a friendly cowboy, but what a great asset to have at your disposal. You've got some stars in the background, just proving that it's nighttime and really bringing that scene to life. And there's obviously good use of night lighting, either spotlight or you've had available electric light there. So there's a wonderful kind of, I was going to say Old West, but it's actually one of my comments is that it has a modern feel to it. This is a modern cowboy rather than the Old West. And think about the intent of the photographer. So if your intent is to convey modern photography, you've done a great job. If your intent was to convey Wild West of old, then maybe dial the colors down, that kind of thing. So I'm not going to score it either way on that. That's just an observation about the story that you're trying to tell. I love that nighttime scene. Some of the colors are a little bit too punched up for me. I think the red's quite saturated. The blue of his shirt's quite saturated. So maybe think about managing those down. By contrast, the saddle looks absolutely wonderful. You've got this beautiful kind of leather tone there, wonderfully lit. You've got the bales of hay in the background sort of punching in, maybe just a little bit, subdue the light just a little bit on those so it stays on the cowboy. And then just a critique, there's a little bit of a halo round the bales of hay, especially in the top right, and a bit round that post there as well. And that's often the result of either using too much clarity or trying to bring too much detail out of shadows, and it creates that halo effect. And it can be a real eye drawer. So just be aware of that. But it's a very powerful story. And I think with some just, even in post-processing, some color management and just softening some of the brighter areas, that could be an even stronger image. But I think we'll give that a 9.
Wild West Dream.
Great use of the silhouette there. Again, this tells a different story, I think, even to the previous image. I think I've probably got more of the older West here from the silhouette. I love those sunset colors behind the photographer. There's always the dilemma, isn't there, between do I work on bringing the detail out of the subject or do I actually force it into a complete silhouette? So I don't think there's a wrong or right there. You've made a great choice. around making that into a silhouette. I am looking for improvements, and I think I'm slightly distracted by either both dogs or one dog. And I wonder whether just losing the dog on the right might have actually told a more powerful, intimate story between the cowboy, his horse, who's clearly looking at that dog. And they create a kind of circular motion. My eye keeps getting drawn away from that scene when I look at that dog at the back. So then maybe that's a consideration, is about how to make that a more powerful scene. If you're doing that anyway, consider removing both dogs and just seeing what it looks like. But I actually think the dog on the left works very well from a storytelling point of view. Had the dog been looking up at the horse, I think we'd have had that, just that beautiful animal to animal connection that might have made it a 10. But I think this is a very strong 9, Larry.
Okay. Well, those are all the F16s, and we have 5 10s. That's Passive Dispersal by Ron Schaller.
Yes, I've been photographing milkweeds at the open space near my home this year from spring until fall. And this is a seed pod, and I'm starting to experiment with off-camera flash. So I flashed from the left side there. I just wanted to emphasize the hair on the seeds and how that enables them to be blown by the wind and be carried.
It's really nice, Ron.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Across the Dunes by Ron Cooper.
This silhouette was made at sunset in the Thar Desert, which is in the western part of the state of Rajasthan in India, near the border with Pakistan. And in order to get that separation between the two camels and to get the boy's gait to have him look as he's walking animated, I shot about 50 frames. And it's just a matter of luck getting one where all the pieces came together.
Nice job, Ron.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Fall Reflections by Lee Ermey.
Yeah, I went up with some friends late September up towards Genesee Pass, not Genesee, Georgia Pass, looking for aspen leaves. We didn't find any yellow ones, but we found these orange ones. And so I looked at it and thought there was more there, so I added the reflections and the fog.
Thank you, Lee. Teacher's Pet by Butch Mazuka.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, great. My wife and I have sponsored a school in Kenya for a number of years, and we visited it, and I forgot who just spoke, but it was a matter of being at the right place at the right time. She kind of looked at me, and I waved, and I kind of made a little face, and I was hoping none of the other kids would turn, and she just had this little coquettish look about her. Anyway, so I took the shot, and I sure understand what you say about the light, but it just wasn't a multiple choice.
I'm forced to critique. It's a beautiful image, Butch.
Good. Thanks, Butch.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
Misty Morning Rain by Travis Broxton.
Yeah, first of all, I can't believe I got a 10 on a landscape picture. Oh my God. Anyway, I was I was driving home and dropping my daughter off at school, and I just decided to turn into Cherry Creek Reservoir, and because it was that foggy morning we had last week, so I just pulled into there, and this is just a shot from the side of the road and the little entrance road there, and I did add the rain, so it wasn't raining. I did add the rain, and I did add a little texture to the sky because there wasn't nothing in the sky at all. So, so that was about it.
Good. Thanks, Travis.
Okay.
Let's see. Now we have 2 critiques only. Where are those? Okay, this is called Dead Fish. You don't need to give a score, just critique it, Scott.
Yeah, I'm just taking it in. It's it's really quite a powerful story, just seeing the head there and the skull. The title is clearly very descriptive. I like the use of the diagonal. You kind of wonder what's going on here. The fact you've captured the cracks in the earth, which just suggests dried out riverbed or something that's going on here. Has this fish basically died there and been consumed, or been consumed and brought there? I'm intrigued to kind of know what's going on. It looks like the tail's kind of semi-submerged, so maybe there's been some wind blowing around. So it's a very intriguing, powerful image. There's, from a critique point of view, think about black and white as black and white. So there's a kind of grey wash over this, which doesn't make it a less pleasing image. But if you want to just think about the impact that you get by making the blacks just a little bit blacker, and especially the greys maybe a little bit whiter, to actually create a stronger sense of contrast there, really punch out some of those cracks, take my eye down to the actual eye of the fish, and punch out some of the bones. So if you can create a sense of texture in the fish and a stronger sense of black and white, I think you'll have an even more impactful story to tell.
Okay, thanks, Scott. There's one more. Sunset and summer.
Okay, it's a very pleasing image straight away. You've got this sense of peace and calm as you look at the landscape. Lovely light coming in from the left there. I can't remember if you said if it was sunset or sunrise. From a critique point of view, there's my eye went instantly to that cloud on the right. And remember that point we were saying earlier about your eye will always be drawn to the brightest area of an image. Arguably it's on the left and the right, but the left is meant to be there, and the cloud's kind of taking away from the story a little bit. So you either want the whole cloud or you don't want the cloud at all. So I'd think about that. The birds aren't telling a strong enough story, and it kind of took a while for me to even notice them. I don't know if they're in focus. I think it's zoom, but they look out of focus to me. So I would have, and again, I'm not in the field with you, so it might have been impossible, but ideally the birds would just, you know, a few shots later would have been almost over your head and actually given you a little bit more of a prominent subject there. So think about that. And then the trees on the left are dark, and I appreciate you've got the sun behind them, so it's difficult to get detail, but if there's a way of pulling some detail out of the shadow there, that's going to help you. Again, a graduated filter or blending is going to help you achieve that balance between the bright areas and the dark areas. That just comes with practice and experience. And I'm curious about the post, which could have been a really good foreground subject. It's kind of, because it's in the midground, I'm therefore looking for a foreground. So that space at the bottom is a little bit dead. And I appreciate you might say, well, I was trying to retain the curve of the trees. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but do trade off and look what works better, cutting the bottom up to the post. So I've got a little bit of foreground, or retaining it as it is. But as it is now, you've got a slightly bland foreground. So I repeat my opening comments though. It's a very pleasing scene. There's a lovely kind of palette of color there. There's a softness, and you could certainly look at this image and be pleased with it. So these are critiques and techniques. It's a little bit, I don't know how much you talk about the rule of thirds, and I'm loath to use the phrase rule because I'm the first one to be happy to break it when it's appropriate. But it does look a little bit kind of cut across the middle there. And again, just cutting up to that post might give you a better sense of proportion between the top and the bottom half of the image. So the more I think about it, the more I would probably do that in post-process, is just crop up to that post and see what it looks like.
Good, thanks, Scott. That's all for our competitions. Somebody had a chat. Was there a question? Oh, Carl posted your website and how to connect.
Thank you, Carl, for the PR.
Yes, indeed.
And do you have any parting words for us, Scott, or you want to
Just,
I don't know, do you have workshops or tours or something going on?
No, as expected, you made it very difficult. I mean, I love the diversity, actually, was what really struck me. And it's one of the beautiful things about clubs is you've just got this melting pot of different styles and preferences. So, I mean, I've seen lovely landscapes, lovely street scenes, lovely portraits, and just to have that diversity of work, I think is fantastic to see. So it's great, and I'm very flattered, as I say, to have been asked. I'm not here, as I say, to promote anything. There's an exciting thing happening in Golden. If any of you are over there, one of my images is being converted into a mural, 12 by 12 foot mural of a wild horse called Picasso. So that's going up just off the High Street in Golden at the start of November. So that's exciting. The horse just died, so it's a nice kind of legacy for him. And before I joined you this evening, I had just completed entry for a competition at the Colorado Photographic Arts Center. They have their annual Denver architecture competition, and it closes tomorrow. So if any of you are into architecture and you've got a nice portfolio of work from Denver, there's a free competition for you to enter. And one of the prizes is actually a critique from the executive director there of your portfolio. So that might be a nice way to continue to develop and learn there as well. And while we're in the competition vein, Share the View, which is the big kind of nature, wildlife and landscape competition for Colorado. It's opened its competition. I think it closes at the start of December. So that's a great way to get your nature work amongst a higher audience. If you just Googled Share the View or look for that on Facebook, you'd find it. So I think if you've got that competitive spirit, just don't keep it inside the club. It's a great way to celebrate the club, is to go outside as well and enter other competitions.
Well, you're complimenting us, Scott, but we have to compliment you. You did a great job critiquing tonight. Got a lot of great ideas and ways that we can improve. And I really appreciate you coming on and helping us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And I want you to
Thank you very much.
Stay safe and healthy, and wear your mask.
Now, Larry, this is Carl. Before we run away, since we've got 30 people in here, there's I know a couple of times, Scott, you mentioned that the quality of Zoom and your screen looked like maybe there was some banding and stuff like that. There is an option in the video settings for Zoom, and if everybody wants to take 30 seconds now to go look at their settings, it may make a difference. I don't know if this setting is just for your camera or if it's your feed totally, but it may make a difference. In the bottom left of the Zoom window where you've got the start video and the mute, that if you click that little arrow by start video, you've got video settings. And when you pop up your video settings, there's it shows your camera and also shows my video and enable HD. So if you check off that enable HD, that's certainly when you're using your webcam, that's going to be an HD version of it. So it's probably going to go a little bit wider. You're going to see a difference, but also it's going to be better quality. I don't know if it necessarily helps with somebody who's sharing a screen. Bob, make sure that you have this turned on, because it may make a difference in actually screen sharing and the quality that we all see of the images being shared.
That's a great tip, Carl. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And just to reassure everybody, I gave everybody the benefit of the doubt there. I didn't mark anyone down from that perspective.
Wise choice.
Yeah, well, thanks for the tip, Carl. Much appreciated.
Yes, indeed.
Do we have anything else to discuss?
Larry, this is Dave. I guess in closing, I was very, very pleased to see the increased number of entries in the F5.6 and the F8 group. Those have been kind of minimal the past couple of months, so I was very pleased to see that. I want to add my thanks to Scott as well for the detailed critique. It was a joy to kind of listen as he took his, each image and took his time to go through them very, very thoughtfully. And I think all of us learned from all the images that he discussed. So I wanted to say thank you to Scott for his detailed critique.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hasta la vista, baby. We're done. I'm gone.
I guess that kind of wraps it up.
I think so.
Thanks very much for everybody for attending. Appreciate it.
Thanks for hosting, Dave. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Night.
Bye.
Till next time.